Hello, I'm Fulton County Commissioner William Bill Edwards. Welcome to the South Fulton Good Things Show. Today we are delighted to have as our guest State Representative LaDawn Blackett Jones. LaDawn, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, we're pleased to have you here today, and I know that you've been trying to rest up from the session this year. LaDawn, let's talk about you for a minute in this first half. You're a native Atlanta. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I moved to Atlanta in the 80s. My parents moved here from Texas trying to take advantage of the minority opportunities. Grew up in South Fulton and graduated from Westlake High School.
Westlake High School. Well, Westlake High School has put out somebody other than Cam Newton.
That's correct.
Of significance. And tell me, what profession did you pursue after getting out of college?
So I went to Tennessee State and I decided to extend my time in school. So I went to law school and went to Tulane. And after I graduated, I decided to work in the Fulton DA's office.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you at the Fulton DA?
For about 7 years, and I left after being a chief senior DA.
And I think you were very involved with the community prosecution program, were you? Tell us a little bit about that.
That's correct. So the community prosecutors help go out in the community, prosecute repeat offenders. And when I started with the program, there were 4 community prosecutors. And when I left, we expanded to 8 community prosecutors, including the one in South Fulton County.
Well, it's a great program, and I remember working with you in that program when you started. You did a wonderful job. After all of that, going to Westlake, Tulane, coming to the DA's office, what motivated you to seek something as an elected official?
It took a lot for me to see that there were things I weren't happy with, and I wanted to put my money where my mouth was by spending my time and working in the community. When I was a community prosecutor, I had an opportunity to listen to community members and their complaints and their concerns, and it gave me some insight that said they need leadership that'll be vocal and active, and I decided to become that leadership.
Well, you know, a lot of times people want to get up in the morning and decide I want to be an elected official who have not done much of anything. Tell us a bit about what you have done in the community that prepared you for this position.
In addition to working as a community prosecutor, as soon as I graduated from law school, I wanted to have an opportunity to give back to my alma mater, Westlake. So I started a program called the Women of Westlake. And for 7 years, my students and I have worked in the community. I've taught the students life skills. And then my students started a program called the Sisters of Sandtown Middle School, also in South Fulton County. And so that was my main connection, was serving the South Fulton community by serving the students at Westlake and Sandtown.
Well, I'm glad you did it. You know, you brought me kicking and screaming because, you know, I didn't want you to do it at first. But you brought me kicking and screaming, and I'm glad. One of the best things I've ever done is that you persuaded me that you're going to be good, and you have been good. Tell us about the area in which you represent.
So District 62 is a newly drawn district. It runs from downtown College Park, includes a lot of East Point, unincorporated South Fulton, and unincorporated Douglas County.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's a lot of area.
It is.
Do you do a lot of things down in Douglas?
Absolutely. So my portion of Douglas County is unincorporated Douglas, and so I've been doing a lot of outreach. Unlike South Fulton, the neighborhoods aren't as organized or aren't as active, so I've been reaching out to the community and trying to help them get involved in what's going on in their government.
So most of the district is South Fulton County? About
70% of the district is in South Fulton.
Well, I tell you, your election was historical because, you know, you got into a runoff, and you were even a close second. But in the runoff, you won hands down. So that says a lot for you.
Thank you.
Your first session is over now. Tell me how you rate it.
On a grade scale, I would have to give it a D. There were a lot of attacks on my home county that made it very difficult for me to really appreciate the process the way that I wanted to.
I'll tell you what I hear. Everybody's appreciative of all the lawmakers that stood up for Fulton County. They really, really are. And you know, I could name them all. But your name comes up all the time because people are really, you're a freshman legislator, but you went out as if you were a veteran. And you're very much appreciated in the community for all that you did. Now that you've gone through that whole deal of the legislature for this year, what seems to be your vision for 2013?
Well, one, I want to go back and take my background in law and make sure the reasons that made me get involved is to make sure we put out some very good laws that make sense. But on the other end, I think we have to be more strategic. In Fulton County, changes are going to come in a multitude of ways. And I want to work with my party and folks on the other side of the aisle to make sure we have plans into the long-term future. And that's what I hope my contribution will be.
So you agree that whatever the justification for whatever happened this year, it ain't over? That we'll see more in coming in the session in 2014.
I really feel like this was just the foundation session. I think the 13 bills that came out was just a starting point. There's probably going to be twice as many in future years.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel intimidated when you went to the legislature? Or what was your first day feeling?
My first day feeling was actually appreciation. There were a lot of people who laid the groundwork for me. Growing up in South Fulton, I never had the feeling of a minority. I never felt like I knew that there were black lawyers and doctors and accountants that lived next to me. And so being in the House and know that there were folks who had to struggle very hard to get there, I was like a kindergarten. I looked at the ceiling, played with the buttons because of my appreciation for having an opportunity to be there.
And as a freshman legislator, what is the most important thing that you learned from this whole session?
So someone told me there are rules and then there are rules. And I have learned that there are opportunities that you have to break the unwritten rules and opportunities that you have to play within the unwritten rules in order to progress and move forward your district.
And I guess that, when you talk about rules, you learned a lot. People did a lot of things to you up there. Were there rules that you took in on your own that you applied to what you were doing?
Absolutely. Well, you asked me earlier, was I intimidated when I went up there? And one of the rules that I went in is to make sure that people understood that I'm just like you. We are all elected from a district, and we are there to serve a constituency. And if that means I have to step on your toes, hurt your feelings, if it's going to be better for District 62, for South Fulton, for Douglas County, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Those are my rules.
Right. Now, things are always good. Some things are good, some things are bad. What was the most memorable times that you've had in your first year?
My first most memorable moment was challenging the Speaker of the House.
Oh.
And some of the rules that came down for Fulton County that were really harsh. It was a constitutional vote, and it was my job, even if we were going to lose that vote, to make sure that everybody stuck to the rules of the House. And I felt at one moment Speaker of the House Ralston did not quite follow the rules. And I stood up and I made sure that it was known that someone was watching and we're going to speak out. We're not just going to roll over.
Do you think that you had the backing of the people of your district, and especially South Fulton County, who came out to support you?
Absolutely. There were times when we had more than 300 people from South Fulton County there to raise their voice and to speak out. We had more emails than has ever been sent to legislators about the issues in Fulton County. And I definitely think that they had the support. And our town hall meetings, we had 4 or 5 of them, standing room only at most of them.
I think most people, the message that we had been sending in the past is that we really surrender. This time, there is no surrender. And thanks to people like yourself who are helping us to go to the next level with what we got to do. So now that you're out, you had time to look over things. Are you looking forward to coming back to 2014?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now that I've had an opportunity to understand the process of putting forth a bill, the process of getting the word out to the community, I want to come back stronger and better than I did this year. But more than that, I want to come back as a team with the rest of the people from Fulton County, with the rest of the Democratic Party, with the rest of the people from the metro area. I want to work as a team, and I'm excited on how we can do that.
Well, we're excited to make sure that we're on the team with you. And I hope that you've put things in process. And how are you putting things in process now to gear up for 2014?
Well, we're doing a lot. We're reaching out and making sure that we have bills that we think are going to be important before January starts. We're reaching out to the community to get their feedback on what it is they want to see change. And again, working as a unit, making sure that in this time off of session that each of the members of the Fulton County delegation and the other delegations are kind of walking in lockstep towards reaching the same goals.
Well, LaDawn, you got a fired up constituency, and they're there to be with you as we go into 2014. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a minute with more from State Representative LaDawn Blackett Jones. Welcome back to the South Fulton Good Thing Show. For those of you who have just tuned in, we're speaking with freshman legislator, State Representative LaDawn Blackett Jones. LaDawn, thank you for coming back. LBJ.
That's right.
Tell us about LBJ. Why did you choose LBJ?
It's a name that people can recognize. I found when I went out in the community and I would introduce myself, LaDawn Blackett Jones. By the time I got to the Jones, people forgot about the LaDawn, but LBJ is a name that people can remember easily.
We have been quite enlightened today about what you know and what you've been motivated in the field of politics in our first segment. We're going to talk a little bit today about your task. Where did you find yourself in the legislative process this year? How did you feel, and what could we have done better if possible? Now, this first session, you focused on Fulton County. My personal thought is that out of 159 counties, there were other counties who needed something. But we choose to spend a whole lot of time on Fulton County. What did you think about that?
It was interesting. Before getting into elected office, I could not tell you the difference between Democrats and Republicans outside of the basic overview. And one of the things we know about Republicans is that they believe in local control. So it was very interesting to me to get in and find that all of the bills made by the state were directing the policies of a local jurisdiction, and the exact opposite of one of the things that conservatives hail as their main point. And I always likened it to, imagine if there was a headline today that said President Obama and the Congress has decided Georgia's spending too much money. In fact, they're spending more than Florida and Texas. So they come down and they're going to decide that we can't have this much government. They're going to cut our counties in half. They're going to cut the number of elected officials in half. How would we feel about that? So it was disturbing to see that we were doing the exact same thing that we would dislike being done by the federal government to one of our biggest and most important local jurisdictions.
So we're talking about an issue of home rule, and I'm glad to say that the Board of Commissioners of Fayette County passed a resolution unanimously in support of home rule, because you may not like Fulton County, but what we all have in common is this issue of home rule, and I think that was taken from us. A lot of times we have to work both sides of the aisle. Did you find that to be something that you could achieve, or was it hard for you to do, or did some of the Republicans see, the light of things and came over to support what you were doing?
I will say that's probably one of my most disappointing things in the session. It's easy to reach across the aisle. You talk with your colleagues, talk about their backgrounds. You find common ground on some of the legislation proposed, enjoy each other's company. But when it comes time to vote, many times, for a lot of reasons, they vote strictly on party lines, things that they completely disagree with. They decide to vote along party lines, and I understand why. There's a lot of pressure from leadership that they'll take away the money from your local university, that they'll take you off of the committee that you came to the House to serve on if you don't vote along what they think you should vote along. And people feel like they don't have a choice. So as much as you can reach across the aisle, pulling somebody over is a totally different thing.
Another issue that came up in the legislature too was the fact of, if you vote for me, I will help you with your local bill. And I understand that some people initially did that, but had a change of heart on the second go around. Tell me how effective that has been.
Being in the minority party, Democrats having such a low number, there's not many carrots and sticks that the Democrats can use to get their bills across. So they have to rely on those on the other side of the aisle to get things done. And many times elected officials have to make a choice. And the legislators had to choose, do I get money, millions of dollars for my local university? Do I get my bill passed? And if so, then I have to do what it is that the other party tells me to do. And it's hurtful, but I think what's important for us to do is to remember that there are not permanent friends or permanent enemies, but there are permanent issues. And I think that if we start to build those alliances more, we can help keep and hold strong folks in each party from making bad decisions or from voting just for the benefit of their own district.
Right. House Bills 171 and 172 were directed to impact South Fulton County itself. Opposition to this bill would threaten you threatened you with censure. And I remember you called me and told me about that, and I simply told you if they censure you, you'll be a hero. But how did you feel about that whole process? You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're standing up for what you believe, yet people want to censure you, for what you are elected to do in the first place.
I was threatened with censure because I wanted it to be sure that everybody understood what these House bills were really about. The bills were not about reducing the tax base in Fulton County. These bills were not about letting people make their own local choices. What these bills were about is separating Fulton County, breaking it into parts. And so what I did was make sure that everyone knew that by taking quotes directly from other legislators. And I shared it with the entire House, because as I tried to reach across the aisle, many people did not understand the background of Fulton County. And when I did that, there was rumors that folks from either party wanted to censure me, meaning they wanted me to sit down, be publicly humiliated among the House. It doesn't change my ability to vote. It doesn't change my position, but it puts you in your place, so to say. And it was disturbing initially. But like you said, it eventually let me know that I was doing the right thing. If you're fighting so hard that they want you to be quiet, that only means you need to fight harder because you're hitting something.
Oh, I'm Bill Edwards. I understand. And I know that you were, as a freshman legislator, I guess you were amazed at the actions of both parties, really, because I think there were some people in your own party who wanted you also to apologize to the majority party for what you did. How did you think about that?
As I sit back now, I recognize that when you're in leadership, you have to make tough decisions. And this year, we've passed more Democratic bills than ever passed before in the past few years since the Republicans have been in power. And part of me understands that they wanted to be sure that the path they were taking of passing Democrats' bills continued to the end, and they didn't want anyone, including me, to threaten that. But on the other side, I really feel that, and this is constructive criticism, sometimes you have to give up a little so that people know that you are fighting for them. We need to make sure that all of the Georgians' voices on the other side are heard. And if we sit quietly so that we don't affect this bill or that bill for this locality, we're not really doing a good benefit for everyone. But I understand the difficult decisions that they have to make. I think that we can re-strategize in the future to see balance what's more worth it.
Fulton County took a position on the redistricting bill, and we feel that what the state drew was not only inequitable, it was unfair, and we had drawn a map in 2011 that I thought would meet all muster. As you know, that we are going to pursue that further, all the way to the Department of Justice, as beyond as we can. What did you think about the maps as you looked at both of them?
We had an opportunity to talk about this in the committee that voted on the maps, and I pointed out to the committee members, and that many of them, no matter what party they were on, were disturbed when you can take a look at the maps and see that they were intentionally drawn to include several of our county commissioners, to weaken the power of South Fulton County. It is disturbing, however, that someone can look at you in your face and say, oh no, we had to do it that way because that's what the population called for. It's almost as if they're saying, I know you're stupid, and I'm going to try to fool you by telling you one thing, knowing that the map clearly shows something else. So it was disturbing. I grew up in South Fulton County. I know how important it is to have good leadership, leadership that knows the history of the county, and to see that they are intentionally changing that so that they can obtain power. That's not what this is about. I remember being a citizen and asking, why can't both sides just work together? And now I can see why. Because there are some underhanded things, untruthful things, that it almost disturbs your soul.
Well, we believe that Georgia being a red state is one factor, but Fulton County is real blue. As Emma Donnell calls it, dark blue. And 64% being Democrat. I believe that if it was the other way around, that we would not be in the process of breaking down a majority ruled government just to take control. And to me, I think that's what happened. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, and this is what I talk about being strategic. So, just like the county map, the state map that determined where legislators would be seated is what led us here. They redrew that map a couple of years ago in a way that they ensured that the majority party had a majority rule in the Fulton County delegation. So this was not by accident. This was well planned. And there's only one solution to it, and that is people getting up, going to vote, and raising their voices, because we do have the numbers here. We just have to make sure that our numbers are reflected at the voting polls, in the community, in our letters to the emails to our legislators to make sure we get what we want.
So everything's passed. You know, someone asked me in the paper today about the victories of the Republicans. And I don't call them victories, I call them skirmishes. Because the battle, we know who the battle is for. And so we're going to continue to fight. What's your next step? What do you think we need to do to assist you?
There's a few things. We have to get involved in the day-to-day legislative process. I know everyone is busy. I have kids, I have a career, but we have to take a few moments. For example, President Obama right now is asking us to call our senators to talk about this gun bill. We need to do it. As quick as we can send a tweet, we can send an email saying, this is something that I want. We need the support of the people in the community. That is what will make the difference. Come to your town hall meetings when they're advertised. Send out your emails, read the paper, and then share it with all of those people around you and make sure they are involved in the process. If you're paying attention, you'll know what to do.
Thank you, LaDawn, for all that you've done this year, for being the role model, not only for older people like me, but for being a role model for children, because when you're an elected official, there are children looking at you, and they're idolizing you and want to model themselves. Thank you for not backing down. Everyone in your district is proud of you. You've done more than I've seen any freshman legislator do in the time that I've been around government. So you're appreciated, you're loved. We're going to support you, we're going to back you, and we're going to win this. Thank you for being here, LaDawn Blackett Jones. That ends our show for today. For more information on the topics we discussed, please contact my office at 404-612-8230. You may also email me at william.edwards@fultoncountyga.gov. I also invite you to visit my website at southfultongoodthings.com. Thanks for watching. Be sure to catch us again next month when we bring you more on the good things that are happening in South Fulton County.